Due to the graphic nature of this program, viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, everyone. It is the Thursday, March 12th, 2026 episode of The Marco Dre Show. Thank you for tuning in here. Today's groundbreaking news right here in America and across the board, where the facts are facts and hard truths thrive. Let's begin the best of radio, informative, uncensored, unapologetic, and ready to go. I want to start things off before we get into our litany of articles today. I was thinking about what Chuck Schumer told reporters just a couple days ago about the SAVE Act, and of course it being passed, and what would the ramifications and consequences be. And what he said was pretty shocking. To the average listener, most people probably didn't get this, but one of the things he said was, millions of people would no longer be voting in our elections should we pass the SAVE Act. And I thought to myself, well, that's the whole point of it, Chuck. Getting people that are illegal aliens, ineligible voters, off the voter rolls, putting in safeguards to prevent them from voting in our upcoming elections from here on out. That's the way it should already be. That's the way our government should be functioning. The fact that this is not all 100 senators is pretty shocking. And when you have 83% of all Americans that want this type of legislation, that want these safeguards, is something else. But it just goes to show you the Democrats want to cheat in these elections. They're very much open about this, and they'll do anything to save their own selves to get elected. In all these blue cities and all these blue states, this is the way they know they will get elected. Why John Thune is not more adamant about this, I have no idea. He doesn't want to put in a talking filibuster. Why the hell not? Let's get these Democrats on the floor. Let's get them talking. Let's have one side versus the other. What are the pros and cons of this? I really don't understand this. Right now, we've got the majority. We've got the House. We've got the Senate. We just need to get some extra votes. Well, we can get some right-minded Democrats. Maybe. I would hope so. I don't know. But at least we're putting these people on the floor to defend themselves. Why would they not want to do this? Why would they neglect the will of the American people? 83% of all Americans want this legislation, and they want it now. Now, whether it's President Trump, whether it's J.D. Vance, I don't care who goes to talk to John Thune. Something needs to be done right now. And it needs to be done pretty quickly because we don't know what's going to happen this fall. Wouldn't we want to get these safeguards in before the 2026 midterms? So all these questions arise, and we wonder why we're not seeing the majorities get together and work this out. Where is Mike Johnson? Where is John Thune? Why are they not more aggressive about getting this legislation passed that protects our right to vote, protects the citizens' right to vote? One only knows. So, I hope he gets to work on this. Everyone wants this. I don't understand this for the life of me. But this is where we are right now in America, folks. We have these do-nothing Republicans, these do-nothing Democrats who are, again, more than happy to sit back and just watch this play out until they get the majority again. They're very much happy about this, too. They get in the background. Nobody expects anything of them. They still collect their millions, and that's the way things work. Let's get the proper Voting Registration Act passed. That way we can protect our elections. I don't know anyone. I don't know anyone who you'd sit there and go, geez, should we protect our election laws? I don't know anybody that would say, I don't really think so. It's not really a big priority. We need to get this passed, and we need to get this passed right now. And for Chuck Schumer to say that out in the open should give everyone the heads up that they're planning to, of course, continue to cheat in these elections. Shouldn't be happening. Let's talk about the new supreme leader of Iran right now, Mojtaba Khamenei. What did he just say? He finally came out of, I guess, either hiding or he's been in a coma. I don't know what it is. I don't really care, to be honest with you. They can make up whatever story they want about this guy. He came out, though, and said that the closure of the Strait of Hormuz and the maritime passage should be continued to be a tool to pressure the enemy. Well, the enemy, of course, would be the trade between the United States and their allies in the region. Now, in this first public statement, he also said that all military bases in the Middle East should be closed immediately, and those bases will be attacked. So it looks like they're going to be ramping up these attacks. Again, I don't think we've seen the brunt of their new technology in these missiles. I haven't heard anything about the hypersonic missiles they have being launched yet. We're seeing the cluster munitions really starting to make their way. And what they understand is they use the economy as a crutch right now. They know this. They know that it's going to be starting to kill the European economy. It's going to kill the Asian economies in particular. And a lot of people are going to be very miffed at the United States should this continue. What do I mean by that? Look at the oil prices right now. The oil prices are again starting to go up. And what are they predicting right now? Because now they're starting to say, listen, the Trump administration is not assisting ships to go through. Chris Wright just came out and said this the other day. We're not assisting any ships to travel through the Strait of Hormuz, to protect them, to offer them insurance. We're kind of waiting it out right now. Well, no kidding. We don't want any of our ships to be sunk to the bottom of the sea, do we? But Iran warned on Wednesday now that prices per barrel could climb to $200. This is what they're hoping for. Topple the economies. And what will that force the Americans to do? Come to the table and make a real agreement with the Iranians once and for all. Because right now they're holding all the cards. Despite what anyone is telling you right now, they are holding all the cards right now. I know we like to think, well, we're winning, we're going to win. Trump came out yesterday in Kentucky saying, hey, we already won. We won on day one. We won the first hour. Well, no, actually, you lost in the first hour. The decapitation strike failed. And you had Iranians championing around the now deceased Khamenei. They're backing their government. Not trying to tear it down, which they were hoping for. And we got to understand something about this new Khamenei, this new supreme leader. He was also injured in the attack that took his father's life at the compound they were staying at, killed his wife, killed one of his children. I'm sure killed people that he knew, killed his mother as well. His mother died from injuries sustained during the strikes a couple days later. This guy's going to have a little bit of revenge in him, I would imagine, if he's a red-blooded male like me. He's not going to sit back and go, well, let's play nice with the Americans. His parents have been killed. His wife, his children, his family members have been killed in these attacks that are unprovoked during negotiations. And he went on his call for unity with the Iranian people, and he said, Iran will not refrain from avenging the blood of its martyrs. Who is the martyr? His father. Look what we just did in the Middle East. This is why I said this was unprovoked. It was unnecessary. This was illegal through all terms of what the laws of war say. But now it's coming to be very apparent that he is going to be much more of a hardliner and much more conservative than his father was. So I wouldn't even doubt that he comes out and says, you know what, these two fatwas we put out for the good of the country, for the good of the world, in 2003, saying we're not going to build a nuclear weapon. We've told you we're not going to build a nuclear weapon. Well, we scream it from the rooftops. We're not going to build a nuclear weapon. We enter legislation like the JCPOA, where we say, listen, we'll put it to paper, right? We'll put the ink on the paper. We're not going to build a nuclear weapon. We'll have the IAEA come in constantly. They can inspect us. You can come in and inspect us. We'd like to trade with you. And this is what we get. You rip up the deal, then accuse us of building a nuclear weapon. Again, it's just ridiculous in and of itself. So we see this, again, getting worse, the economy. It's going to get much worse, folks. Once oil hits $200 a barrel, I would have to imagine our gas prices are going to be more than double. I'm looking at the stock market right now on CNBC, and they're saying that Brent crude right now is $99.91 per barrel. Just earlier before I began the show, it just ticked over $100 right now as I'm sitting here. It's up almost 9% from yesterday's close. This is going to start to go up because what they see now, despite all the rhetoric, remember we said at first it was the risk of everything. The investors saw, geez, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. We don't know what's going to happen. Will we get this 25% of the world oil supply through this Strait of Hormuz and then get it to the markets? And how will that affect the markets if 20 to 25% of the global oil supply is just sitting there. Well, now they're starting to see the reality of this. Now the markets are actually starting to respond to this. And what was the big takeaway yesterday? I read you the IEA's assessment saying, hey, listen, you 32 G7 nations, you got to start taking out some of your oil reserves. You got to start putting that into circulation because right now we're really starting to dramatically lose this supply every single day. Now we're on day 13 of this. 13 days now the Strait of Hormuz has been shut down. Refineries in the region have been hit. And that's going to take a long time to get that back up and running. So one of the things we have to understand is, folks, this is going to start hitting us in America very, very soon. Yes, we're close to being energy independent. I understand that. But we still do import oil from abroad. In fact, we import roughly 2% of our daily oil consumption from the Middle East, despite, of course, having this energy independence. But when the frameworks, when the benchmarks of this, the WTI, the Brent crudes, the Murbain crude, the Urals out in Russia, when they start setting these frameworks to tell us what exactly the price of oil per barrel should be, that's going to start hitting us as well. So no one's exempt from this, just because we're on the other side of the earth. So we're starting to see this start to tick up. It's going to start to tick up slowly. But so long as this war goes on for, so long as Trump pushes this war, that strait is going to be shut down. And you're going to see the price of oil skyrocket. And you'll see the price of the pumps skyrocket for you. And at first people are going to say, well, it's for the greater good, right? We want to be safe. We hear about how this evil, murderous, traitorous Islamist regime is going to try to kill us. And they hate us, and they hate Israel. They hate the West. And I say to myself, okay, how long are you going to be willing to pay double the price for gas right now? How much longer are you willing to do that for your commute to work? Starting to bog people down in California, folks, don't you think? I mean, we're paying $30 more per barrel from just last month. Brent crude was at, I think, $67 a barrel. Now we're on over $100. It's going to start adding up, and it's going to start adding up very, very soon. Let's just keep that in mind, folks, when we think about what's happening right now. But the next thing is we got to worry about what's going to be taking place with this new Ayatollah. What are his plans going to be? There are no signs that the U.S. and Israeli strikes on Iran's critical and military infrastructure are nearing any type of conclusion, despite Trump coming out and saying that we've won, which, again, I don't know what that means. Does that mean he just declares victory and then we back out of the region? So we traded one Ayatollah for another? We took out the more pacifist one and put in a more vengeful one? How is that good for the world? How's that good for Israel? How's that good for anybody? How's this good for our allies in the region, if they even want to remain our allies moving forward? Because Saudi Arabia came out and said, we left them high and dry. So, regime change off the table. Again, you can hit Iran. You can do all these things. You can try to get the Kurds to come in on the ground, which, again, I don't think they're going to do. But anyone that's paying attention to this, folks, and that's why I tell you these things, anyone that's paying attention to really what's happening right now and ignoring the rhetoric, you could sink their ships. We're not in a sea battle with them. It doesn't matter. You can hit parts of Tehran. You can cause lots of damage. I don't deny that's happening. But to get regime change, you have to have boots on the ground. And I don't believe Trump is that ignorant that he will go ahead and do this. Deep down, I think he's actually really upset that he was lied to, probably, about the fact that we were just going to come in and just have this decapitation strike, take out the Ayatollah, the people will rise up, they'll, scream for America to come in and do regime change. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. Now, will he admit that he's been defeated? I don't think so. I think what will happen eventually is that he'll have to cut his losses and say, listen, the economy's in the tank right now. It's going to get much worse. We're in a midterm year. We can't allow this to continue on. So what we need to do, we need to just pull out. We'll claim victory. We took out the Ayatollah. We have a new Ayatollah. And we'll say, wash your hands of this. Just like we did with the Houthi rebels in Yemen. We didn't defeat them. In fact, they're ready to get involved in this conflict. But then what happens with Israel? Because they're not going to stop. Israel's now attacking Hezbollah to the north and southern Lebanon right now. We're going to get to that later on in the program. But so long as Israel's active in the region, I think you're going to see Iran really start to double down on what they're doing inside Israel. So what does that mean for us? Does that mean we just leave Israel high and dry? Will Trump allow that to happen? Netanyahu's AWOL right now. We don't know where the hell he is. We're getting reports that his brother's been killed. I don't know if that's true or not. We're getting reports that Ben Gvir was seriously injured. An attack on his house. If it's true that the new Ayatollah now is suggesting that we are going to avenge our martyrs now, we're going to be searching for blood. That means anyone that's been involved in this attack that killed much of his family, they're on the table right now. Their heads are on the chopping block. So I don't know what this means for the future of Netanyahu either, by the way. I don't know what will happen. I don't know what's happening inside Tel Aviv right now. I don't know what the Israeli people feel about this. I can't imagine they're happy being in bunkers night after night after night. With their city being destroyed. Haifa being destroyed. Their ports being destroyed. I think Iran is just getting started, and I hate to tell you that, but that's the way I see these things. They are not letting up right now. And I think they have a lot more in their arsenal than we are letting the American people believe. And I say that to you as someone who is, again, watching what's taking place. I don't believe a lot of the rhetoric coming out of the White House right now, and again out of the press, that's simply coming out and saying, hey, everything's great right now. Everything's good. Look what we've done to their, going off about these statistics. We've destroyed 46 Iranian ships. We've hit 2,000 targets. We've done this and that. And folks, go back and look at some of the rhetoric coming out of the military brass from the Vietnam era, and you'll understand this. This is Chris Wright, though, kind of reiterating a lot of this. He was on with Laura Ingraham. And again, to me, it's just more fodder. More fodder to feed to the American people. But you tell me what you think.
I think you've seen what Iran is all about. The world is seeing what Iran is all about. When this regime took power, the first thing they did was hold 66 American hostages for over a year. 3 years later, they killed hundreds of our Marines in Lebanon, all with us taking no action at all against Iran. It is a murderous terrorist regime that's threatened peace and security and prosperity in the Middle East for 47 years. And as you just outlined, as they ramp up their missile program to shield a nuclear weapons development program, you simply can't let them become this superpower that can't be knocked off its pedestal.
Okay. All right. So he says a lot there. I don't know, again, what his effort is to say all this right now. To get the support of the American people? I don't know. Maybe. It could be. Here's the problem with all this. First thing he says is, back in 1970, 47 years ago, they abducted 66 Americans inside the embassy. Why did they do that, Chris? Do you know why? Who were we backing at the time? The United States was backing the then Shah, who was very unpopular with the Iranian people. He was a puppet in and of itself. So would be his son right now, should he ever try to even come back to Iran. I don't think that would go over very well at all. Just thought I'd say that to you. But we were very much in charge of what the Shah was doing. We were very much supporting him. And the Shah, for those of you that don't know, had this secret police called the Savak, S-A-V-A-K. And in many respects, it was much worse than even the German Gestapo, if you even look at some of the information that comes out about them. They killed over 30,000 Iranian dissidents, political prisoners, if you will. They surveilled them, they arrested them, they tortured them, and they killed over 30,000 of them that they did this with. From 1957 all the way till 1979. That's about 3 to 4 people gone every single day, killed, if you want to add that up. God knows how many more they arrested and tortured. This was not a popular regime, and we backed everything that they were doing. We talk about going to save the Iranian people. Where were we then? Now, culturally, of course, it was a different place than what it was after the revolution, no doubt about it. We had very strict laws, Islamic laws, that were put into place. I'm not doubting any of this, and I'm not saying everyone wanted this. But I'm just telling you, that's why those things happen. And the Shah that took over, he was one of the people that was in exile as a result of the Shah being in power. Excuse me, the new Ayatollah that came into power, Khomeini. Or Khomeini, excuse me. So we've got to understand history. We have to understand where we are in this. But then we have to ask ourselves in the first place, why do we even get the Shah? What happened in the 1953 coup? We took out the duly elected prime minister who said he was going to nationalize the oil, enrich the Iranian people. Okay. We didn't like that. So we took him out. We allowed it to be overrun. We installed the Shah, being the person in power. So the Iranian people know all this. So when he talks about this, he acts like nothing happened up until 1979. That the Iranian people just sprung out of nowhere, took control of these embassies, and obviously held hostage 66 people. Again, I'm not condoning that behavior, but I'm just telling you, there was a reason for all that. There was a reason why this happened. It wasn't just they hate America. That's what they want you to believe. So, moving forward, he's talking about proxies now. He says, their proxies killed so many Americans in the region. Just a couple of years later, he's referring to the Beirut barracks bombing that cost 241 Marines their lives. Again, horrific. I'm not saying it's not. But if he's going to talk about proxies killing American soldiers, well, ladies and gentlemen, we helped fund Saddam Hussein kill anywhere from 300,000 to 500,000 Iranian soldiers, and civilians, by the way, using chemical weapons on at least 100,000 of them. So we're talking proxies. Look what our proxy just did, folks. And by the way, the number of people killed in that time frame from 1979 to current day was about 900, just over 900. And most of that is, again, our military. So we're comparing, 900, just over 900 to maybe 500,000, at least 300,000. Whatever estimate you would like to believe, but okay, let's take the lower number. Let's pretend it's 300,000 Iranians killed as a result of this war from 1980 to 1989. By the way, the new supreme leader fought in that war. So he knows very much what the American government is capable of. And we have to decipher, too. They don't like the American government. That's what they don't like. The former Ayatollah has come out and said, look, we don't mind the American people. It's the government we don't like. The government is what we despise. Same thing goes with the Israeli government. And all these other governments that go and support this, that are allies of this, that are putting these crippling sanctions on us. By the way, I think the sanctions are going to be a big thing, too, moving forward. And I think they're going to want those sanctions taken off to stop this war. I think they're going to use that as leverage, too, right now. But this is the reality of what we're in right now. And I think the Iranians are going to have the upper hand on a lot of this, folks. Just again, I'm just telling you what I think. Let's go over some more information that's very important. By the way, we had 3 vessels struck, this is out of Breitbart, by unknown projectiles in the Strait of Hormuz. Yep, there we go. There we go. Things are starting to ramp up very quickly, right? I told you this was going to happen. We got 1 Japanese flag container ship, 1 Majesty, suffered minor damage from a projectile strike while it was anchored near the United Arab Emirates coastline. Damage was reportedly above the waterline and posed no danger to the ship or their operation, no injuries on board. Then we had a Thai-flagged dry bulk vessel called the Mayuri, I believe that's how you say it. That was hit by 2 projectiles of unknown origin on Wednesday. Impacts caused a fire in the engine room of the ship, and its owner, Precious Shipping, said that there were 3 crew members that were reportedly missing and believed to be trapped in the engine room. The other 20 crew members were evacuated to Oman. The 3rd vessel was a Marshall Islands flagged bulk carrier named Scar Gwyneth, which was struck about 50 miles north of Dubai. The projectile impacted near the ship's hold and was reportedly causing no severe damage or injuries. Now, the IRGC came out and issued a statement following all this, taking responsibility for the attack of the Mairi Nare. That's how you say that name of that Thai ship. But there we go, folks. They are showing you what they are going to do. This is what's taking place right now. This is the truth of the matter. This is why these things are happening. They're letting you know, hey, we don't need to put mines throughout the Persian Gulf. We don't need to do that. We could just hit you with our drones. We have so much of the coastline we can observe, we can watch it, we can monitor. And we could throw these things out there and say, hey, you think you're going to get through? You think you're going to do this? Well, look what we can do too. We could play the game too. And I always say this to you as, again, Iran is now just trying to flex their muscle right now. This is what they're trying to do right now. And again, for people like Chris Wright to come out and say these things, about the government and what they do and what have you. Again, if you don't know your history, you don't know your history. That's why I'm trying to tell you these things. But right now, Iran is very much capable of controlling that strait. It's a very small, narrow gap. It's 21 miles in width. So it's going to be very difficult to traverse this without being seen by the Iranians. And again, they have that entire coastline where they can have people hiding out. It's very mountainous. You can put drones, you can put missiles in there that can hit ships and potentially sink them. I think this was them just throwing things out there to say, look what we can do right now. You hit 9 of our frigates. Okay, great. Again, I don't know where the other ships that he's talking about are in play. But this is what they're telling us. This is what they're trying to show us. You can hit us, we can hit some of you too. Move forward with caution. I think that's what we're starting to see right now. So that took place just yesterday. Okay, so again, things are heating up. Things are not stopping. They're not slowing down. Iran is, again, doubling down on what they're doing. And then we got this yesterday. This is out of ABC News. It says FBI warns Iran aspired to attack California with drones in retaliation for war. Again, I don't understand this in and of itself. Why California? That's what I don't understand. Why would they go after California? What beef do they have with California? Well, but nonetheless, it makes headlines. So the FBI warned police departments in California in recent days that Iran could retaliate for American attacks by launching drones at the West Coast. Now, I want to stop and make sense of all this. First of all, Iran does not have any technology that can travel over 6,000 miles. First of all, if it was going to California, it'd be even more than that. Even to get to D.C., it'd be about just over 6,000 miles. That's not happening. They don't have missile systems. They don't have drones. They don't have anything that could reach the United States from Iran. Just so we understand this, let alone California. But look at this. We recently acquired information that as of early February 2026, Iran allegedly aspired to conduct a surprise attack using unmanned aerial vehicles from an unidentified vessel off the coast of the United States homeland, specifically against unspecified targets in California, in the event that the United States conducted strikes against Iran. Okay, so where are these attacks then? And where is this vessel that you're talking about? Where is this going to be taking place from? Have we identified this vessel, FBI, in early February when this came through? I mean, this just makes me laugh. I mean, there's no evidence to support any of this. It says we have no additional information on the timing, method, target, or perpetrators of this alleged attack. So this just goes to show me that either one, nothing's going to happen, and this is more news coming out to get Americans to say, hey, look it, they're threatening us, we got to continue this war. We got to start backing this. Or the other thing is they will create some sort of false flag inside a state like California, for example, and that will help rally up American support behind this war. Those are the two things I think that are happening with all this. Again, I don't see any way in which they would do this. Where is this vessel? Is this vessel going to be out somewhere in the Pacific Ocean from Iran? Again, we have to understand what we're talking about here. We have to make sense of what they're saying to us. But nonetheless, it comes out saying the warning came just as the Trump administration launched its ongoing assault against the Islamic Republic. Iran has been retaliating with drone strikes against targets throughout the Middle East. Well, no kidding. They said they were. But I just want to tell you, everything they said they were going to do, everything they have said, by the way, when you hear Abbas Arachi come out and tell you what they were going to do, what Pezeshkian has come out and said, they're doing right now. They said they will, if they're struck, and by the way, if they're struck first, they will retaliate. They did that. They said they will hit Israel. They will hit our allies, nations of which we have military bases. They will hit our embassies. They will hit oil refineries in these areas to make them inoperable. And they've been doing that. But they never said, we're going to go out and attack California too, by the way, with an unknown vessel somewhere in the Pacific that you can't seem to find. Again, folks, take it with a grain of salt, I think, with this. I don't see any information in here that would indicate that anything is going to be happening in California. That doesn't mean you shouldn't take things seriously. But this is what they're trying to say right now. And again, I tell you this because I don't see any evidence that this could take place. Now, if you're in a major city, Los Angeles, you're on the coast of California, of course, anytime you're anywhere in California, you should always know your background, just because, you're in California. There's no laws. It's lawlessness in California. I know this firsthand. But the idea that they would attack California with drones from a ship, I think is a bit stupid to assert that would be the case. Now, does that mean they don't have sleeper cells in the United States? That's very much possible. That is very possible. Now, Trump came out and said they could use Iranian sleeper cells. Okay, well, again, we're 13 days into this. What the hell are they waiting for then? What specific day are they waiting for? We're going to war with them. We started attacking them. What would be the purpose they would wait this long to get something started in the United States? But then Trump comes out and says this in clip 2 about Iranian sleeper cells.
Iran sleeper cells there could be inside the U.S. right now.
I have been, and a lot of people came in through Biden with this stupid open border. But we know where most of them are. We've got our eye on all of them, I think.
Is it dozens?
They came in through the open border policies of Sleepy Joe Biden, one of the worst president in the history of our country. And we've got our eyes on all of them. But the war itself is being prosecuted at a level that nobody's seen before.
Okay. So we know where these terrorists are, these illegal terrorists in the United States that want to conduct terrorist acts against the United States? And none of them have been arrested? Why have they not been located by now? This doesn't make any sense to me. If we know where these people are, if we know they wish to do harm to the United States, why would we not go and arrest these people? Where is DHS? I mean, that's why we have the Department of Homeland Security, folks, don't we? Securing the border, yes, of course. But why would the FBI not go in and investigate? Why would they not arrest these people? Why would we not figure out what their plans were? I mean, we just saw, just recently, we had 2 people with these IEDs that didn't explode, thank God, but throwing them at police officers in New York City. Why are we not going after these people that are doing these types of things? If we have information about them, if we locate them, why are there no arrests? Why have we not identified these people? Why have we not figured out what their plans have been? Now, the article goes on to say U.S. intelligence officials have now said that there is growing concern in recent months about the expanding use of drones by Mexican drug cartels and the chance that this technology could be used to attack American forces and personnel near the Mexican border. So again, if you live in San Diego, if you're on the California border, if you're in any of the border states, you should be cognizant of your surroundings. Now, I don't know if that they would attack American citizens, but you should be aware for anything right now. And an uncorroborated report suggests that unidentified Mexican cartel leaders had authorized attacks using these types of drones carrying explosives against U.S. law enforcement and U.S. military personnel along the U.S.-Mexico border. Why would we allow this? Again, we spent $30 billion to beef up DHS. Why would we not go after these people? Why would we not use the proper extradition laws to go after the drug cartels inside Mexico, to arrest these bastards, to hold them accountable if this information is credible, that they plan to attack the United States military on the U.S.-Mexican southern border. Why would we not do anything about this? This threatens our homeland, folks. This is something we should be very serious about, if it is true. But again, all the more reason that we create and finish the remainder of the U.S. border wall. Why it's not complete, again, is beyond me. We obviously have the money for it. Heck, we had $350 billion for Ukraine. Why can't we finish this border wall? Why can't we make it more secure? Why can't we make it more tightened up? Put the right people on the border wall? Put the military men, the border patrol, whoever you need to put there. I don't care who you put there. And stop this. Stop this invasion. Stop this trafficking of human beings. Stop the trafficking of drugs, of weapons, of narcotics, everything. This has got to stop. And if this report is true that Mexican cartel leaders have authorized using drones now to attack with explosives in them, how could we not respond to this? How could we not work with the president of Mexico, Sheinbaum, and tell her, listen, this is not going to happen. We're not going to be threatened by this, should this be true. This has got to come to an end. Look at all this, again, look at this chaos that comes from Mexico. Yeah, we're doing nothing about it. We're worried about the Middle East. Iran that says we're not building nuclear weapons. I would think this would be a much more credible threat against the United States than something coming out of Iran, folks. That's just me. You tell me what you think is a much more credible force. The Mexican drug cartels or the mullahs of Iran that have said time and time again they're not building a nuclear weapon. That say, only if you attack us will we attack you. Come on, folks. Jeez, I mean, you can't make this stuff up. So my friends in California listening, proceed with caution. I don't think anything would happen in either of these two events. But, I never say never. You never know what the government has up their sleeves. Oh, by the way, before we move on from the Iran war, let me just tell you this out of the article I have in NBC News. The Defense Department officials told senators in a closed-door briefing on Tuesday that they estimate that the first 6 days of the war in Iran cost more than $11.3 billion. Isn't that nice, folks? $11.3 billion for what? To ignite more hostility against the United States? To kill a world leader? Because Benjamin Netanyahu told you this would be the time to strike? This would be a good idea now? When are Americans going to say enough is enough? We want to put $11.3 billion into the United States or into the border wall. Remember the border wall was supposed to cost what? $5-6 billion back in 2017? We couldn't even allocate that money. Yet in the first 6 days, so I'm imagining we're on day 13, it would be now more than double that. So we have the money for that. We have the, $23 billion for that at least now? But we can't figure out how to fix our border. We can't figure out how to create a border wall. That's very difficult to traverse and penetrate. We can't do that in 2026, but we definitely can go to war with Iran. And deplete, of course, our munitions, our weaponry. So much that we have to have South Korea and Japan now send us some of their tomahawks now that we've given them. It's amazing, folks. It's amazing when you say this stuff out loud, how ridiculous this is. But I just wanted you to know all this because this is no good, folks. It says here in the article, Israel and American strikes have now killed more than 1,200 people inside Iran. Yep. And again, do you see anything on the news about the 165 dead schoolgirls aged 6 to 12 years old that Pete Hegseth allowed us to go and double tap the building which they were in and incinerate them, along with the staff that was inside the building? Yeah, the parents of the kids that came to try to get their kids out in the prayer hall, which they were all sequestered inside, said it looked like they were incinerated, folks. This is what we did. This is what the United States did. Is anyone going to be held accountable for this? Why is no one pissed off about this? That we have murdered children. We as Republicans, we as conservatives. Hell, we as Americans, we should be pro-life. But we're not pro-life in this situation, that we can kill young children like this indiscriminately? Because Pete Hegseth did not go over the rules of engagement? He circumvented a Biden executive order saying that this directive needs to be in place, that before you do a strike, you need a targeting team to check every single location you're going to strike, not leave it up to AI, which is what Pete Hegseth did. And then you double tap this building and kill at least 165 school-age girls in elementary school. This is really unbelievable, folks, that we have this happening now. And Pete Hegseth knows this. Oh, we're going to investigate. Oh, yeah. Let me know what that investigation says, Pete, because your name should be all over it. Because you are in charge of the Department of Defense, and you authorized this attack. And why no one else is upset about this but me, I have no idea. But my goodness, look what we have caused. And for what? That's what I have to ask you. For what? We don't know yet. We still don't know what the end goal of this all was. All right, folks, let's move on. Let's move on to this article I have for us in Breitbart today. So Israel is not only attacking Iran, but they're also attacking Lebanon to the north of them, particularly in southern Lebanon. And it says here, Hezbollah launches front on Israel in Joint IRGC Strike with serious escalations ahead. So now they're fighting on multiple fronts right now. That's Israel. And of course, we're striking inside Iran for them. But it says Hezbollah declared a military campaign against Israel on Wednesday night in what Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps described as a joint and integrated operation, launching more than 100 rockets, drones, and missiles at over 50 Israeli targets as Jerusalem retaliated with heavy strikes inside Beirut and areas outside of them. Both sides are calling for a serious escalation now. So what's happening, folks, in case you're unaware? Israel is trying to take out Iran while they continue to invade and take more land inside of Lebanon. Again, nothing new. They're destroying different parts of Lebanon right now, and no one's saying a damn thing about it. The Board of Peace, of which Netanyahu sits on, is quiet, though. I haven't heard anything from Steve Witkoff, Jared Kushner, Donald Trump. Who else is on it? Is Tony Blair on it? We don't even know. Did he pay his $1 billion to get in on this? It's unbelievable. How could you be on a Board of Peace, still be attacking inside Gaza, attacking Lebanon to the north, and saying you are the peaceful ones? Now, again, I know the 81%, I believe, is the number right now. At least that was the latest figure I saw of Israelis that would like the war in Iran. Okay, fine, whatever. But we're supposed to be in a ceasefire with Gaza right now. That's a mess right now. On average, we were killing, well, I say we because we're giving them all the military equipment, but the IDF was killing 20 to 30 Palestinians every single day since that ceasefire took effect. God knows what's going on inside the West Bank right now. And now we're getting reports that we're now attacking inside of Lebanon, especially even in the suburbs there. And by the way, we've also killed a Christian priest, a Maronite Christian priest. A Maronite is a sect of the Catholic Church inside of Lebanon, primarily. This Father Pierre L. Rai, and again, I hope I'm saying his name correctly, arrived at a house that was hit by a tank fire in the village in which he was in to check on residents and to assess the damage, according to local accounts. Well, during his visit, the house was struck yet again, and he was wounded along with 3 other civilians. On the way of which he was evacuated from this area to the hospital, hoping to get treatment, he died of his wounds shortly after. Why is this not in the American press right now? I'm reading this out of Haaretz, out of Israel. Why is this not over the press in the United States? That a Christian priest was killed? Why are they targeting houses in Lebanon, folks? That's against the rules of war, to target civilians. You can't do that. It's in the additional protocols of 1977 of the Geneva Convention. You can't target American civilians. Or, excuse me, any civilians for that matter. How are we allowing this to happen right now? It says the incident immediately sparked backlash among Christian political figures inside Lebanon, who accused Hezbollah fighters of entering the village and thereby leading to the strike. Oh, I'm sure it's the Hezbollah paramilitary group that is trying to fend off Israel from taking more of their land. By the way, 700,000, at least 700,000, Lebanese are now displaced from where they live in southern Lebanon right now. You cannot make this stuff up. You really can't make this stuff up. Many residents then criticized the Lebanese army and government for their inability to protect civilians not involved in the fighting. Well, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You've been decimated. You've been completely decimated. Israel is not going to let up. They think Hezbollah is weak right now, so therefore they know they can attack. They know that Iran is obviously fighting them on another front. So it's going to be more difficult to get resources into the area. And now you've got the wonderful leader of Syria, al-Shara, saying that now he's going to help the Israelis in this attacks. Isn't that wonderful? Isn't that great? Right? Just the reason probably why we put him in there. And that's why he's approved to be put in there, even though he killed American citizens. By the way, at least 634 people have now been killed in these Israeli attacks in southern Lebanon. Another 1,586 wounded now. That's what the reports are saying. Yeah, no end in sight, folks, from this war. We were hoping for peace, and now, of course, what do we get? We get more war and bloodshed. Again, you're not hearing any of this in the American press. Are you? Of course not. Let's talk about the Kremlin, too, right now. We've neglected, and again, I hate to neglect the Russia-Ukraine war right now. That's still taking place right now, by the way. And Reuters says now that the Kremlin says that Britain was involved now in Ukraine's missile strike on Russia. So now we have MI6 heavily involved in what's taking place inside of Russia. Just add more fuel to the fire there. The Kremlin on Wednesday accused British specialists of involvement in a deadly Ukrainian strike on the Russia city of Bryansk that used British Storm Shadow missiles and said that it would take Britain's role into account. Great. That's great. So now what are we going to have? Russia attack NATO? They said that 37 were injured in what they called a terrorist missile attack. Of course, again, using Ukraine now. So really, folks, what's happening inside Ukraine is that we're using Ukraine to attack Russia. That's what this is all about. It's not to save Ukraine or the Russians of ethnic origin that live inside Ukraine. This is about us using Ukraine as a proxy. We are trying to fight Russia through Ukraine. That's why all of NATO is trying to get behind this. That's why, even though the United States has taken a big step back under President Trump, you see governments like Germany, you see governments like France, and you see the UK trying to come in and say, no, we'll keep funding this. We'll keep trying to help this. We'll help the cause. We'll try to liberate Ukraine. Even though we have at least 2 million dead Ukrainians now in our hands, with no deterrence in sight, and the over 4 years this war has been going on for. Now, asked by Reuters if there would be any military response to the use of the British missile attack on sovereign Russian territory, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov said that Russia would take into account the British involvement. So we're not seeing any of sight of this war, folks. Again, it's going to be ended on Russia's terms. I told you this before. Zelensky, of course, is coming out now and saying that Iran is the aggressor here and he'll assist us. It's so preposterous. This is all taking place. But again, there's greater wars going on right now. Yep, there's no comment from London. Well, what are they going to say? What are they going to say? And by the way, Putin is very much aware that the United States tried to assassinate him, again with these strikes on his residence in Novgorod. Yep, nobody says a damn thing about it. Nobody says anything about it, but they know. They know exactly what's going on here. And none of this is going to cease anytime soon. Mark my words, none of this is going to cease anytime soon. It can't. So long as anybody is funding Ukraine and Ukraine is saying we're in the fight, Russia will continue to attack this. But Putin's big misstep in this is that he's not finished this much sooner. He didn't have to drag this out 4 years. He needs to take Kiev. He needs to pass the Dnieper River, take the land, And I guess he needs to hold Zelensky hostage. I don't know what he has to do to get the Ukrainians to come to the table and say, listen, we're done fighting this war. Get the generals to say, listen, we're going to stop this now. It's over. There's nothing left to fight for. This is the reality of the Russia-Ukraine war right now. And Russian Foreign Minister spokeswoman Maria Zakharova, how do you say her name? Zakharova, excuse me. I can't say these Russian names easy sometimes, folks. They're difficult sometimes. Yep. Said that the strike was premeditated and directed against civilians, again, another war crime, and challenged that the UN to assess what had occurred. Why is it the Russians and the Ukrainians have a much better stance on international law than the West does? I don't understand this. Yet we're calling them tyrants, murderers, trying to kill the West, and yet look what we do. We're attacking civilians in many of these cases. And by the way, where is the UN? We give them so much damn money. Where are they in all this? Nowhere to be found, as always. All right, let's move on. I got another great article about our domestic issues inside the United States. By the way, great piece by Judge Andrew Napolitano that just came out today. And it says, silent attacks on personal freedoms. He says, during the first Trump administration, the FBI quietly spent about $5 million on Pegasus, and this was an Israeli-developed software product known generically as ZeroClick. And what does ZeroClick allow you to do? Well, it allows the person utilizing the system, this software, to download the contents of another mobile device, or, for example, a desktop device, or anything that you could connect it to the internet, without tricking the user of that device into clicking on a viral link. So what you do is, for example, and by the way, this type of spam exists here in the United States, of course, but you get those things where say, click on this link so you can see your Amazon deal. And you're like, what Amazon deal? I never sign up for this. And they expect you to click on this. And what they do is they can then download the contents on your mobile device, your computer, your iPad, whatever it is that you have. And they can then upload all of your information, all your data. And they can collect that and they can use it as they wish to use. Now, when FBI Director Christopher Wray was confronted with this evidence of this purchase back in 2021, by the way, which President Trump was against when he heard about this, he stated under oath at a congressional hearing that his agents did not want and would not use this program, and they just wanted to use it to see how it worked. Oh, okay. How many times have we heard that? How many of you listening believe that? And if you do, I've got some great beachfront property I can sell you in California. The only problem is it's out in Bakersfield. But I can sell it to you for real cheap, if you wish. If you really believe that. Do you not think that the FBI would use this against the American people? Come on. So they buy it, they say they want to understand how it works. Okay. Now, he claimed it was locked up away in storage in a warehouse in New Jersey. God knows where that is. But not trusting his own FBI director. Maybe this might be the only claim to fame Joe Biden can have that is actually good and useful. He signs an executive order in 2023 prohibiting the use of this type of software from any government employee in the federal government, except for a true national security emergency purposes. Okay. Now, last week we learned that President Trump quietly rescinded Joe Biden's executive order. So while you were worried about the Iran war, while you were worried about the price of gas and, of course, commodities, Donald Trump surreptitiously rescinds this. So what did we learn last week about the infamous Section 702 of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, FISA, which expires next month? And, again, Trump once condemned this program. What did we find out? Well, here's the backstory. After presidential employment of the CIA and the FBI to violate Americans' privacy during the Nixon administration, Congress enacted FISA, which proclaims itself to be a sole lawful way to the intelligence community to spy on the American population. Isn't that great? They can spy on you. So, in other words, they can totally violate the Fourth Amendment, right? No reason to obtain a search warrant. This is why what they do with our cell phone technology, where they can obviously turn on your microphone. They can look through your camera lens, unless, of course, you cover it up. They can utilize these things to collect information about you. That's just what they do. And nobody seems to give a damn about this. Where the hell is your right to privacy? Nobody seems to know. Now, they require the probable cause of crime to the federal judge and the issuance by the judge, in a case of these FISA courts, of a warrant permitting the surveillance. Now, the warrant must specifically describe the places to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. But the we could talk about the Pfizer puppets too. But in this case, the FISA puppets, they purport to change that statute and the nature of the evidence presented and the warrants issued by a federal judge who sits on these FISA courts. Now, instead of the probable cause of crime mandated in the Fourth Amendment, right, I should be alleged to have committed a crime before they issue me a search warrant. Well, that's not the case anymore. What the FISA court judges may issue now are search warrants based on probable cause of communicating with a foreign person. This is how they get around this. So, for example, if I call somebody in Italy, let's say I call somebody in Italy. They could come out and say, well, we authorize the federal agents to search anywhere they wish in any given database and seize whatever the hell they want to find, or whatever they think they might find. And they can have that information now stored on me. See how this is coming to a head, folks? Now, in one FISA court, a judge signed a search warrant permitting federal agents to rummage through the telephone records of all Verizon American customers, which was at the time about 115 million households. Remember, we did this during the J6, right? They looked through all the documentation of anyone with a Verizon wireless information. Bank of America gladly handed over their information too, about anyone that could be in the region at that given time. Do you see how these organizations are working with the government, ladies and gentlemen, to give your information over to the feds, which should be 100% illegal? God, I'm fired up today, folks. I can't believe what's going on around us today. Where is the Fourth Amendment? Where is the right to be secure in your persons? It's nowhere. Nowhere to be seen, at least. Now, this search where you wish and seize what you want mantra was that of the British soldiers and, of course, the British government agents on the American colonists. And, of course, the pre-revolutionary America. And our founders understood this, and they said, the hell with this. That's why we have a Fourth Amendment today, folks. These are the pretexts for why we have our amendments in the Constitution. But, of course, Congress, being weak as it always is, and notorious for shrinking our constitutional liberties and their duties to us, they don't think twice about enacting statutes that directly and just totally strip the Constitution of what it gives us. But it gets worse. Section 702 of the FISA permits warrantless surveillance on foreign persons in the United States and elsewhere. This, too, of course, violates the Fourth Amendment, whose protections are for all people, not just citizens. But now it gets even worse. Can you imagine this? Section 702 permits warrantless surveillance on all persons who communicated with foreign persons. So if you call someone in Italy, Germany, Dubai, doesn't matter where they are, and the FISA court says, well, we've extended these permissions out to the 6th degree, is what Judge Andrew Napolitano says here. Thus, if you called your cousin in Dublin, emailed someone in Florence, Italy, the feds can surveil all your communications without a warrant, collect that information, even if you have done nothing wrong, or your cousin or the art dealer, whoever it may be. They will collect that information, they'll store it away on you, and they'll have that information. Isn't that disgusting? Absolutely sickening. This is what your government does. Collect your information. And by the way, they do it with the cell phones too. That's how they collect the data on you. They sell that data. They make a lot of money off it. They get rich off you. and store your information. Absolutely sickening. Absolutely sickening, folks. And I don't know what more I could say about this. I don't know what more we could do about this, other than understand that what your government does is treasonous against you. And they will continue to do it so long as we allow it to happen. That's the reality of the situation now, which we face now. Where are our rights? How is it the government can come in and tell you, for example, we talked about this yesterday, that they can come in and say that, yeah, you got to take this COVID shot. This COVID shot you must take. If you want to keep your employment, you got to take it. Totally violates your Fourth Amendment rights. Your right to be secure in your person. Your right to privacy. Where is it in the United States today? Where is our privacy when they have these devices that can collect information on you? This so-called smart technology. Ain't too smart after all, is it, folks? We got to stand up against this, and we should be fighting against this. They shouldn't be able to get away with this. Folks, thanks again for being here today. I appreciate you so much. Hope you learned something from today's show. Hope you'll share it with others. Make sure you're keeping your mind sharp, body strong, staying prepped with food, folks. Don't forget your food, water, ammo, money, gold, tools, anything to be self-sufficient. Have a great rest of the day. I'll see you back here tomorrow for more groundbreaking news on the next Marco Dre Show. Until then, be good. God bless.